Must be in the future. Just kidding. Or south.
Yeah, she's very south.
Yes, Fort Myers.
Okay, we have our live streaming Facebook people joining us. And Alex, our presenter, I will let you know about our watching for comments. But greetings, everyone. I'm Kim N., president of Dunes-Calumet Audubon Society. Welcome to our monthly meeting and program. Just want to share some information with you today. And I'm always going backwards on this, but here we go. Here is our things that are coming up. The 26th annual Great Backyard Bird Count starts tomorrow. I'm very excited because I'm hoping in these next few days, I also want to do a little journaling with the birds out my back window. We are also having our monthly bird walk is this Saturday. Michael Topp is going to meet members and registrants at the Visitor Center on Highway 49 at 9 a.m. There are 5 spots available. So after the program today, get on Eventbrite and register for that. I think that Saturday is going to be a really good day after we've had this weather come through. Also, we have our Birding Festival registration giveaway. As a proud sponsor of the Indiana Dunes Birding Festival, we receive 2 festival tickets. So we're going to give those away to members. You have to be a member. And then you have to just answer this question. Who is the keynote speaker for the 2023 festival? And you can find that on the Indiana Dunes Birding Festival website. So email that in before Sunday midnight, and you'll get a chance to be in the drawing for that giveaway. Our next month's program is by Bo Schaefer. That's going to be a fun one too. He actually did a big year in 2020 on his bike. So I have not been on a bike in a long time, so I'm hoping to enjoy it through him. And then always we have our Dunes-Calumet merchandise on Threadless. You can order whatever size you want, the colors that you want, all kinds of fun stuff on there. So we also have some volunteer opportunities coming up. So be sure to check the website for those things. And last, I think that, well, let me see. Actually, that's it. Our other things are on there. So volunteer opportunities, if you want to get involved with monitoring or surveying birds, their nests, if you want to help with a beach cleanup, if you want to help at some of the events that we'll be at, we were going to be at the Birds of Prey Jamboree in Lake County, the Earth Day, Porter County Earth Day, and the Birding Festival with our native plant sale. So lots of things to get involved with in addition to our program tonight and our bird walks that we do. So I'm very excited about our presentation tonight. I'm not sure if I've actually seen Alex out at the Highland Rookery because during the nice months, we had so much traffic and construction on 94. I had a hard time getting over that way. But I will tell you that I went to a cute little store in Highland, and now I don't remember the name of it, but I'm sure Alex will tell you, and got a copy of his book. Oh my goodness. So much fun looking through the pictures, and he's going to tell you lots more about it, but I really like the way he's got it organized, and I can look in there and see what's coming to the Highland Rookery, different times of the year. So I highly recommend. I think he's going to be telling you more about it, so I don't want to give too much away. So Alex, do you want people to go ahead and we'll put some questions in the chat, and then you can let us know when you're ready for questions.
Sure.
And we'll relay them to you.
Sure, that sounds good.
Did it come up for you that you'll be able to share your screen?
Yes, let me give it a shot here.
Wonderful.
Right.
So just give us a moment, everyone, and we'll be getting that going.
Of course, you told me to test this before we got on, and now it's saying I have to grant it access or something. Hold on one second. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
Okay, we are all testing our hearing for those birds, right?
All right, here we
There
go.
we go.
All right. Out of the way here. All right. Hold on. All right. There we go. Okay, thanks everyone for your patience. I appreciate everyone tuning in and to hear a little bit more about the background of the book. Here's a kind of a simple version of the cover of the book. To sort of kind of get things started off here, I would like to thank Matt and the Dunes-Calumet Audubon Society for giving me the opportunity to come and discuss the book. It's been a kind of crazy ride and almost unreal still to me. Kind of things went pretty quickly, and it's just been really exciting. I also want to thank the Highland Community Foundation and the Highland Art Council. They provided a grant that I applied for, which kind of kickstarted this whole project. And then about halfway through, I reached out to the Little Calumet River Basin Development Commission, and they also helped out supporting the project. So it's really just everything's gone better than I expected, and I'm really excited to share the project with everyone. So to start off, I'll tell you guys a little bit about the book. The book basically documents the wildlife that I've personally observed at the Highland Rookery. The Rookery is, I can actually walk out my driveway and look down my street and see the path on the south side of the Rookery. So I'm pretty close. All the photos that are included in the book were photographed between 2019 and 2022. Ended up at about right around 180 pages with more than 300 photos. There's over 115 species of birds, and I also included, any bugs, mammals, and other critters that I happened to come across. I got the books around Thanksgiving, and I ordered 160, and I've already sold about 150 copies, which has kind of just blown me away. So it's been a really cool experience. I was kind of going back and forth on whether or not to kind of take a break in the middle and show a bunch of pictures that are in the book, but I decided to go kind of a different way. So if people are tired of hearing me blabbing about the book, you could kind of just look at the picture until I get on to the next slide. So the first picture here is one of the coolest experiences I've had there. It's an American mink. I saw it sitting on top of the retaining wall, looking back at me from far away, and I saw it go into the rocks, and it just happened to pop up when I came up and just looked at me for what seemed like an eternity, but it was probably 30 seconds or so, and it was really a cool shot. But try to not let the pictures interrupt the presentation too much. So a little bit about myself. I'm a fourth generation Highland resident. My kids are fifth generation, which is kind of unusual for a younger town. Ever since I was little, I've always loved exploring art. And I was, always drawing or just trying new things. I really love music. I played drums. I was in a band and throughout high school for quite a few years. We played a lot of shows and stuff, so it was a good time. I've always appreciated nature, and I've always just been an observer of things in general. Before I get past the art thing, my grandma was actually a local artist and was commissioned in the mid '90s to do the Hoosier Prairie South Shore poster, which is kind of exciting. So there's a little bit of a connection there. She passed away within the last 10 years or so, but so I feel a lot of her, as I'm out there taking pictures and proposing things, and I'm kind of living through her there. So anyway, I've always kind of been a finder of things, even since I was a kid. My poor mom had to stop me from picking up trash and just little things all over the place, just because I've always been like, ooh, what's that? And I've always just been observant of things. Through college and high school, I worked at Griffith Dairy Queen, and I would count the drawers, and I was always picking out silver coins or wheat pennies. And that's just kind of been my nature, to find the unusual and come across something that, that you just don't see all the time. And I think that's really what drew me to birding at the beginning, was just the opportunity to come across something that's not always there, and you could kind of predict it, but it's, you really can't. So that's just kind of what has brought me to birding. First camera. So I had a camera way before I really was thinking much about birds, to be honest. When cameras on cell phones kind of became a little bit better, I was just taking pictures of stuff all the time, and my wife would ask, what are you even taking pictures of? And I just joked that I was like, it's for my life journal. That was just like the, just leave me alone kind of answer. And in the first half of 2011, I was considering buying my first DSLR camera, and my sister-in-law was kind of toying with helping shoot some events and things. And she asked me if I would help her shoot a wedding. And that was before I'd even held a camera. So from then on, I ordered the camera and helped her shoot a few weddings before having kids. As a graphic designer, that's something I kind of skipped over on the last page. That's kind of what what I do for a living. I worked for a company called Mixed Design out of Cherville for about 14 years, up until about a year and a half ago. I had awesome experiences there and got to work on some really cool projects. We worked on like some stuff at Fair Oaks Farms. We helped redo the whole dairy adventure, so it was gutted, and then gutted from what was done in the late 90s and totally updated. So we developed things from touchscreen games to coordinating murals that are going up on the walls, and just kind of educational information, but like exciting type stuff. So it was kind of cool to like learn different ways to present information. So we also did a lot of branding, so logo design and things like that. So there's a lot of touches of that stuff throughout Northwest Indiana, which has kind of been fun. But through the years that I worked there, I kind of became the unofficial work photographer. So if we had to cover an event or take photos for an ad or things like that, that was something that I was always willing to help with, and it would just be like a fun break from being behind the computer. Aside from that, with the camera, from using it for fun, I was kind of put away after I had kids, which I like you saw earlier. I have two boys, Harrison and Logan, and kind of skipped over the family thing a little bit too. My wife and I have been together since high school, so almost over 20 years, which is kind of crazy to say too. So anyway, I'll get on with it here. So kind of how I got the birding bug. We bought our house in Highland here in 2009, and I had hung some feeders outside, and just kind of observed what was there, which was kind of fun, and kind of opened my eyes a little bit to what more was around, aside from just cardinals and robins and the stuff you see as a kid. I think when I saw my first northern flicker, that really opened my eyes. Like, wow, this is like it looks so like exotic to me. So I have a picture of one here, a male one, taken at the Rookery, of course. So that was kind of one of the first ones that got me excited about birds. And then I saw Julie Bonema at the Rookery, and she was just standing at the path. It had to have been early April. This was, I was going there pretty often with my family, and I just had my camera on my shoulder, but I saw her, and she had binoculars and was just staring at the tree line. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And just because I'm nosy. And she was like, there are these birds called kinglets, they're here, and they eat bugs, and they're just kind of bouncing along the tree if you watch them. And I was like, it's kind of dumb, but I was like, at that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, birds eat stuff other than seeds, and it was just like, and then after that, shortly after that, my brother-in-law invited me to a few Facebook groups. One was Birding in Indiana, which is kind of a statewide one, and then the Northwest Indiana, Lake and Porter County ones, which those just kind of really fueled the hobby for me. So at that time, I was working full-time mixed design, and kind of balancing the hobby of work and birding, going out, maybe once on the weekend or something like that. And then, after maybe a year or two of doing it a little bit more seriously, I posted on Facebook just to all my friends and family, and just kind of let it all out there that I had this closet hobby. At that time, a friend of mine he's a videographer, another creative guy, he was like, you should make a book. And that kind of planted the seed for me. So that was probably in maybe late 2018, early 2019. And at that time, being a designer, I kind of know the ins and outs of what types of photos you need in the file quality and things like that. So for just an example, so if you have a picture that goes into a printed book, it basically needs to be about 4 times the resolution of what it has to be the same clarity on a screen. So like this picture of the Northern Flicker, you'd probably have to print it at a fourth of the size to see it at that clear actually printed. So so I knew that I had to like upgrade my equipment a little bit more and take better pictures, and that kind of nudged me a little bit to kind of improve my photography game and kind of get out there a little bit more. So like I said, I was kind of birding between the 9 and 5. And then COVID happened. And so my whole office, we never really did the work from home thing unless it was like 2 feet of snow out. But we all worked from home for quite a while. And actually in the middle of that, our office moved, and I kind of got a taste of just being home and a little bit of a different work-life balance. And so shortly after that, after we went back to the office and new opportunities came up, I was able to spend a little bit more time with my family and take a part-time job that's regular, and then also do freelance on the side. And that also just opened up the kind of the floodgates for this book idea once I kind of got settled into not doing the 9 to 5 thing and being responsible, so after that, I kind of started going down the path of the book. And kind of where do I begin? I had a friend who was a year younger than me. We were close in high school. She dated one of my best friends in high school, and she created a book. She basically was a cheerleading coach, and had a few cheerleaders that had kind of a tough time in high school, and had them each kind of write a little portion of their book. And she published her own book, and it was pretty exciting. So she was one of the close person to me that I knew. So I went to her first and asked her about it, and she immediately mentioned the Highland Has Art Grant, and she's like, "You might want to check it out. It might still be open." So, there was quite a few ups and downs from there. So I quickly, Googled it. I found on their Facebook about it, and it was like 2 days after the grant window closed for applications. So I was pretty bummed out. I sent them a message about my idea, and about a day later, they're like, "Well, actually, we extended it till June." So I had, so I got excited again. And I kind of just went, they had a Google form that you could fill out to apply for the grant. And just hit with my graphic design background and presenting things for sponsorships and things like that. I'm like, I have to put something really thorough together and explain who I am and all that stuff. So I threw together maybe like a 10 or 12 page presentation. I included some of my photography. I mocked up this concept version of the book, which you could see over here on the left, which is a little more busy than where I landed, but still kind of in the same world as where the final cover was. Pardon me for a second. So when I sent the presentation, I also included pricing for the publishing. I included pricing for canvases for giveaways and posters to promote the book. Originally, the book was going to be 100 pages and 9 by 7 and paperback. So that's what I pitched to them, and asked them to cover the printing of 100 books. So my plan was to have, this was right at the beginning of the year. So I'm like, if I work hard, I could get this in people's hands by Christmas, and that would be a good way for me to promote it as a gift, and, to ask people if they would want, be interested in checking the book out. So, so I sent the application at the end of January, and I waited, and a month passed before I heard anything. And then another month passed, and I kind of just was like, maybe it wasn't meant to be, and I didn't want to bug them or anything. So I just kind of waited. And then mid to late March, I got an email on the 18th, and they said that they were going to vote on it, do a final vote, but they were pretty sure that they were going to cover half of the cost of the grant. So I was really excited. That was a pretty big deal, enough to just motivate me to say, yeah, someone's going to help me cover this. I'll definitely make it happen. So they also presented that I would have to figure out a way to cover the other half of the book. So that those gears started turning in my head. But, overall, I was really excited about this process overall. And then, about a day or two later, it hit me I'm like, oh my gosh, now I have to actually go through with this. Like I have to make a book. So then all these questions started popping in my head. Like, okay, how is this going to be organized? Do I include any wording at all? Or is it just going to be pictures? Do I include any IDs? Okay, now this Kestrel's looking at me. Should I include scientific names? Do I need to cite references? And then now I don't even know where to start. So, my brain's swirling. where is this going to go? So I, stood back for a little bit and I just started thinking about it from just somebody who's never heard of birds or anything. Obviously everyone's heard of birds, but has never like explored it too much. So I kind of made a game plan of kind of what I wanted the book to be. So I kind of went there first. So the first thing I wanted to be was not too intimidating, and definitely just to focus on photos and the photography, where if someone flipped through it, they can enjoy it without reading, too many other words. And I also wanted to make it really approachable. I thought about organizing it by, types of birds. And then when I started going down that path, I was like, I don't want it to be super scientific and then get it to the point where I have to, be citing all these references and everything. So I just kind of just dialed it way back, and basically wanted to be informative but photo focused. And then as I, when I decided to go with the calendar format, it made it really easy just to start making buckets. Like I'm going to make a January folder. And as I go through all my photos from the 3 years that I shot photos in January, I'll just pop anything from January in there. And then I'll just kind of, go through that when I get there. So I just kind of decided what the first step was, and that was, sorting through the photos. And, I was going to hopefully identify everything that I could, which the bird part was fun. But, when it got to some of the bugs and stuff, I've learned that there's just tons and tons of like dragonflies, for example, and they all look like this much different. And there's just like tiny little things and, the different lighting. So no one's called me out yet on any bugs, but I only had one little bird ID mess up, but aside from that, things went pretty well. So, so then I kind of went on with the next steps now that I kind of figured out how I was going to go about things. So I created a Facebook page to promote the book. Having a little bit of a background in marketing, social media wasn't really my thing, but it was, I know enough to make it work. So I've kind of used that pretty heavily. At this point, I'm kind of toying with ideas of what to do to raise the money to cover the other half of the book. So one of the things that I definitely wanted to do was consider the pre-sale options. So, I looked into things like GoFundMe and some of those other like crowd share type things. And I really just didn't like the idea of me having to spend $5 or somebody else having me pay an extra $5 just to add a little bit more on top of what's going to become an expensive book, because aside from just the time I'm taking on this, the publication costs were, higher than I expected. And, I know the cost of the book is pretty high, but that's just kind of where things landed. But so aside from just depending on the pre-sale, I thought maybe I'd sell 25 or 30 books with the pre-sale. So, I added up what that would be, and it would help out quite a bit. But aside from that, I decided to approach the Little Calumet River Basin Development Commission, who they're really not involved in really artsy type projects at all. They're actually they do a lot more like civil projects, and they were actually the ones behind the big project that addressed all the flooding in Munster and Highland, which kind of is how the Rookery came to be, and why the path is raised and everything was just to fight that flooding. So, some things have changed since that project happened, and the Rookery may not have been seen in the best light. So I thought it might be a good idea to kind of let them know, like, hey, there's still a lot of great wildlife here. Although things have changed, it's still worth going there. It's this little like awesome pocket of nature that, people need to know more about. So I just kind of wrote him an email. I didn't send him the presentation or anything yet. But I, sent it to the main guy on the board, and didn't really hear much from them. For a few months actually, which was pretty much kind of as I started kind of working through the book, just knowing, that I might hear from them, I might not, and just keep moving forward because the book's got to happen now, because I agreed to, said yes to them helping out with the grant. So, so that was kind of a crazy part, but we just moved forward. And then, so the first big step of the book was what ended up being the toughest task of the whole thing, which is kind of crazy. But it was sorting through all the pictures. And so just to make it a little bit fun, I saw what I started with just to see where I had to go. So I had to sort through 60,000 images that I had taken over a 3-year period, which is, it's a little crazy. I have a pretty good workflow. When I go out and take pictures, I make a folder for the date and, with where I was. And I work on an Apple computer. So when I go through, they have like a little tag system. So you can basically highlight pictures that you like. And I have like a color system where if it's this color, it means this, or that color, it means that. So I have an idea of what are the better ones. So the first layer of grabbing all the pictures actually went pretty quickly because I just grabbed all those highlighted ones. But there were some days I didn't even take the time to go through and highlight them. So, and then, I was finding memory cards with photos that I didn't even know I took. And it was just like, it became pretty painful. So, so I, like I said, I started digging into the photos. This was just like such a daunting task. And there were so many times where I was just like, what am I doing? Should I just stop? Do I really need to go through all of them? So the first round, I narrowed it down almost 10% to 10%, which was pretty good, I thought. So 6,500 images, but you can't make a 100-page book with 6,500 images. So the second round, I got that down to about another half. And the more I went, the more critical I was of things and the more mindful I was of things. I was looking at like, how many duplicates do I have? Which there are a few in the book of, if I got a good picture of a bird, the same species twice or something. So then I got down to about 300 images, and just sorting through the images alone took through from about March through July, which is just crazy. And mind you, I'm birding this whole time too, because that's like right in the middle of there's May. So this whole thing covered a couple different migrations, which I still got my birding in somehow. But so after that fourth round, I was done. I was throwing in the towel. I'm like, I'm gonna worry about. I got to just start laying out the book. My wife's having a panic attack this whole time too, because she hasn't seen me lay out a single page of the book or write anything about the book. It's just me looking through hundreds of thousands of bird photos, and she's just like, you got to start the book. I'm like, I can't just lay out 3,000 pages and go from there. So it was a little stressful, but I was a little bit more seasoned to go through a process like this, with working in some kind of the same world for as long as I have. So it was kind of fun to go through the motions and do something like this for myself too. So it was really satisfying. So I did this little example things to kind of show how many pictures I started with and what I actually ended up with. So this green box size-wise represents 60,000 photos. The black box you see here is round one, which is 65,000 photos, 6,500, I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. Then this white box here is 3,500 photos. So here we'll zoom in a little bit there. So now we're super zooming in to this little black box here. So now, so round one, so now this is 3,500 pictures. So here we'll look in this little tiny speck here. You could probably can't even see it if you're on like an iPad or your phone. I'm sorry. So that was round two. So round three is this little dot. So then we'll zoom into round three. I don't know if you guys can see this little box here. So within that little pink dot, this little white thing is the amount of photos that actually made the book compared to how many I started with there. So I went through those couple slides pretty quickly to explain how many pictures there were, but I kind of had to show you how painful it was to kind of land where I did. So that's enough about numbers of books here, or numbers of pictures anyway. So the next challenge I had was populating the pages. Here's another one of my favorite pictures from the book. All the pictures that are in the presentation, by the way, are actually in the book too. So this was kind of a way to show you guys some teasers too along the way. This is a Sora from early last spring. There were just tons of them right along the edge of the marsh, kind of on that road leading back to the dump. Anyway, so kind of my first order of business after I reduced all the images was organizing them in monthly folders for each month. Made a folder, and then I kind of had to break it down into smaller folders as I went on, but I'll get to that later. So at this point, I decided to do a DIY pre-sale. So it took a lot of extra work and a lot of commitment to be organized on my behalf, but which isn't really my strong suit. But I mean, I just kind of said I'm going to do it that way, and I did. So just through Facebook and using PayPal and like Zelle Quick Pay or even cash or check, however people wanted to send the money. I basically gave a $5 discount on the book. The books are the retail on the book is $50, so I was selling them for $45 each if people pre-ordered them, with a promise of delivering them if they lived in, within a so many mile radius. So at that point, I laid out all of the photos that I had in the pages. Some of them are full page, one picture per page. And I landed at 180 pages. And I think at that point I decided to go to 150 pages because I knew I wasn't going to make it to 100. And the publisher I was working with at the time, after 150 pages, the books jumped up like $12 per book. So I was like, that has to be the cutoff, So, but I'm like, I don't want to let 30 pages ruin my my process and workflow here. So I'm just going to keep going. So I basically numbered each page based on the month, just really simply. And then I wrote all the copy just in a Google Doc, so I could keep going back to it and edit it and go through that way. And then for the copy, I tried to keep it really simple. So pretty much I included ID for all birds. There was one Carolina wren that I called a house wren that'll be addressed in the second edition. Aside from that, I felt pretty good. It was just some other simple little things that I corrected, but I also included, besides the ID, maybe a fun fact about the bird, or just like a few sentences to add context to that experience for me. So there were some things that were just, the photo just didn't do enough. So I maybe left a paragraph or two, but overall, I think it worked out and is a kind of a quick read. At this point, the pre-sale is kind of going strong, which is just it just kind of blew my expectations out of the water. I actually ended up pre-selling over basically 100 books by the time it was time to deliver them. So like my friends and family and like just so many people in the local birding community pulled through and just really surprised me. So like I've been so humbled by this whole thing. Like that was just something I did not expect at all. So, and again, at this point, my timing is on the right track. I'm finally laying out the pages. It's probably getting towards the end of September, early October. I know I need to get these things to print pretty soon. So things are going pretty good at this point. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking about the next steps of going to different shops and stores and bookstores, and kind of thinking about where I'm going to do like a release type thing, like in person. And so I made a few stops, and along the way, somebody asked me who was printing my book and how much the books were each. And he's like, wait a minute, you got to check out this other publisher. So I'm like, okay, it's worth a look. So I signed up and made a membership and everything, and looked at the sizes and everything that they had and their prices, and did my research comparing them to the other publisher. Some huge benefits of this publisher where there were no minimums. You could order one book and it was like $1 or $2 more than ordering 100, per copy. So that was huge for me, just for looking into the future. You could add pages for like pennies each. So I could keep my 180 plus pages without having to, go through the pain of cutting anything else. And I could also go up to a larger format. The only format they had at horizontal was 8.5 by 11, and I was originally doing 9 by 7. So I had already laid out the whole book at 9 by 7 pretty much, but the cost savings and all that stuff was so worth it that I was like, I just have to do it. One of the big risks of the saving the money though was there's like literally no customer service. Like if you reach out to them, it's like 5 days until they get back to you. You can't just reach out or call someone or email someone. And the other company I was working with was great, but I'm like, I could work through that to get the book to people, at a more reasonable cost. So at the same time, the time was up because my timeline changed. So everything had to be updated, and my timeline was compressed because it was like a two-week longer lead time on turning them around for the production. So that was a little crazy. I promised the books for the holidays. That was kind of how I sold it the whole time. So I had to kind of stick by that. So I did try to stick to that, and things kind of worked out. And then it was just a crazy proofing party here. My wife is a middle school English teacher. So by default, she got to be my master proofer here, and kind of taking more responsibility than she has to. But I think she had fun along the way, but kind of took it as seriously as I did. So it was fun. And she challenged quite a few things for me and kind of helped me make things make a little more sense. I read things as I wrote them. So it was nice to just get a little bit of an outside perspective and, an honest opinion too. So, and then while we're making this quick turn, I kind of just wanted to point out a little thing that, like, while all these crazy changes are happening, I'm going birding between all these changes. So I got to squeeze it in. And, I just, every morning I wake up and I just want to get back out there. So I just can't really help myself. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So at that point, I kind of buckled down. There were a few days there where I skipped going to the Rookery, I'll admit, but I just had to do it. So I was in the home stretch. I got the book finalized at the end of October. I had a 3-week lead. And then I had the big challenge now of how many do I order? So I've sold about 100 at this point. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, did the 100 people that actually want to look at this book already buy it? And do I really need that many more? So I landed on 160. 160 copies was where I was going to go with that. Part of the agreement that I made with the Little Calumet River Development Commission was that that I would give them a certain number of copies that they could share with the board so they can kind of get the word out, which sounded really great to me because that's kind of a whole nother pool of people that might not get exposed to the book, you know, through the ways that I was promoting it. So that sounded really good to me. So then after I decided how many I would order and, you know, clicked order, which was pretty kind of made my anxiety go up a little bit. I had a problem and the files wouldn't upload. So anyone that's done any design work knows that like just file size is just something, it's just a big beast of the world of design. And this, you know, 180 page book with high resolution photos was just, you know, I didn't have too many headaches along the way because I kind of knew what I was in for. But at this point it was just really bad. So I let the files upload overnight and it just would not finish. And it was pretty bad. So I tried some tests and I tried reducing the file size and did some tricks that I knew. And eventually after a couple of days, we got it to go through. And at that time, I basically took the biggest risk. They suggest that like you should definitely get a hard proof of the book. Just order one, and then you could take a look at it and make any changes that you need to before you order like the big order. And I had already, my back was against the wall with the timeline, and I was pretty confident in how to read the templates for the covers and things like that. So I just decided to say, hey, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen? How bad could something be where I couldn't sell the books, or you know, just write an apology or something. So that was a little crazy, but it was kind of a really exciting part of the process at that point. Over here on the left, we have a yellow-billed cuckoo. This is probably my number one birding experience. I actually thought it was a northern mockingbird, which still haven't seen. And I ended up seeing like 3 cuckoos that week and thought they were all mockingbirds before I saw them. But I took this picture at Heritage Park in Munster. And yeah, it just popped up out of the trees right in front of me. It was crazy. So sharing the love. So I basically got the books were delivered Saturday after Black Friday, so right after Thanksgiving. So I planned to sign all the first copies and number them for the first edition. I thought that would just be like a nice touch. And then I designed a sticker for the Little Calumet River Commission to put inside the cover because the books were already sent to print when they finally reached out and let me know that they were going to help with you know, a big portion of the production costs. So that was really helpful. And I'm glad that they worked that out with me. So I planned the release event at Promise You Art House and promoted it on Facebook. My friends, family actually opened the gallery there. I believe it's been about 5 years now. If anyone, if you haven't been there, it's a really cool, eclectic place. If you're into art or have art that you want to sell, you know, they're willing to just have your stuff there. They have things from anywhere, and it's just like a really great eclectic mix. You can also get the last few copies of the book that are available right now there, but it's a cool place to go. So I actually had my release there on December 10th, and a lot of people came out that I didn't expect, just friends that I hadn't seen in a while, or just old you know, workmates that I hadn't seen in a few years that we just kind of hadn't talked. So that was just really refreshing. And I even saw just people that I knew from the past that I would never have thought to see there showed up, and it just was really really an awesome experience. So basically right now I have my second set of books ordered, and I had my fair share of hiccups ordering the books this second time. Again, it was just the lack of actually being able to speak to someone, but a few days passed and we got through that, so I was able to order them. So I have 100 more copies coming, and actually 30 of those are going to Little Calumet River Commission, because I sold more leading up to the holidays than I expected. And I asked them if they wouldn't mind waiting till the second edition, which they very kindly let me do that. So I was able to get more books out that way too. So it was pretty cool. Kind of looking back at the whole process, you know, I'm still kind of getting the word out about the book. Before the holidays, there was such a push just to get it done, get it into people's hands. I kind of was having a hard time kind of looking at the next steps after that. So stuff like this is really exciting for me to kind of reach out to new people and, you know, get the word out in different ways. Part of me thinks I may have gone a little bit too fast with the book, but I also didn't really want it to like drag out too long. Actually, somebody reached out from Purdue University when they found out that I was producing this book, and they were interested in potentially publishing the book, which was really exciting for me. But after, I'd already signed, I basically spelled out exactly what was going to happen with the book and my timeline and all that stuff with the grant. And I'm sure that there could have been some adjustments there, but I also, I didn't want it to drag out. So part of me kind of wished that I would have gone that way, but I think, um, I was able to do the book my way. It probably would have became a little bit more sciencey, and then I would also have to kind of go through other people's filters of what the book should be, which for me personally, that was kind of a double-edged sword, because when I starting the book, it was kind of daunting that there wasn't really much of like a sounding board to which way to go about the book, which I mean, I have friends and, birding friends and photography friends, a couple of them are the same, obviously. And so I got the other's opinion and kind of ran ideas by them. But the other part of it that was awesome was that I didn't really have to jump through any hoops for anyone. And, I wrote it exactly how kind of from my perspective. And there's a little bit of my personality in there too, which I think is kind of fun. And of course, my mom told me that of all people, so she would know. But so overall, I think, I learned a lot. It was very interesting because I've done a lot of things like this for other people. So it was just really fun to do it for myself. I learned a lot about myself through this. Something that has kind of been hard for me that this process forced me to do was, like, if you have a vision or like a goal or just like something that you wish you could do in your life, or which I sound like a wise old man, I guess. But like, just ask questions or just poke your nose in places where it might not belong. I've never been one to ask for handouts or that sort of thing. So just, kind of getting the nerve to reach out to ask for things is just kind of exciting. And the worst thing that can happen is, you could kind of get shot down or find out that it's really just not meant to be. But those little steps kind of might lead you to something big down the line. And that's kind of something else, is that this whole thing is it's almost like a bucket list type of a project. So for me, being kind of so young compared to the average age birder, no offense to anyone, I feel really lucky and humbled that I've been able to kind of go through this process and share something that I've just been doing for my own leisure and my own happiness with so many people, and kind of give them a peek into that. So would I do it again? I definitely would. I don't know if I'll go the exact format or the same style, but I'm definitely going to kind of explore what's out there for me. I think, before this book, I hadn't even sold a single photo or a print to anybody. I never sold a digital photo of a bird to to people. I took pictures for, like I said, the weddings and stuff, which I guess that would kind of be the only like professional thing I've done. So it was kind of crazy to go from 0 to 100 with this project, but it was fun. So next steps for me, I'm definitely looking into, and I've already priced out like a kid-friendly bird book. I think there's a big opportunity to kind of teach them while they're young, or create something that's got some clever rhymes and some fun facts mixed in to make it approachable and a local thing. If I kind of have some gears turning about a way to kind of, if that is a successful idea, to get that into some, a lot of the elementary schools in the area, which would require some funding from different places. But I think it's a big opportunity. I think just because just the birds that come through our area, it's like we're like in one of the best places in the country to see birds. So when my next order of books comes in, I'm going to also give a copy of this book to each of the elementary schools in my hometown here in Highland. I thought that would be cool, so kids could check out what's here. My kids go to the same elementary school I did, and my mom even went to that elementary school, so it's kind of cool that we're all still here. Something else I would really like to look into that I kind of have some ideas on, are just improvements at the Rookery, whether it's just cleaning things up or maybe some additional signage about what to look for, where to just kind of pique some interest. I know some other nature type trails and things might have signage of what types of plants you might come across that are native and things like that. And that kind of stuff has always piqued my interest. And I think, one of the big things about the Rookery is it's so like vast there. And when you go there for the first time, the marsh is so big that all you can do is just stare out over the marsh and really like probably more than 50%, no, probably like 60% of the pictures in the book are not even at the marsh. They're in the woods, the little tree lined woods. in areas along the water and places where, you wouldn't necessarily stop to look. Um, so yeah, it's, I think there's definitely some improvements there. I'm really happy and lucky to have it right here. And I've kind of been a homebody birder. I don't really get out a whole lot more or get out a whole path, like more than like a 5 mile radius here. I'll venture out a little bit, but it's so close to home and it's convenient. And if I have a half an hour, I could go spend it there and, usually see something. So it's pretty cool. And then, freelance opportunities, I'm hoping that I get a little bit of exposure here to, inspire somebody, people to explore something like this if they're passionate about something, whether it's birds or plants or whatever. If they have information they want to present and share to somebody, I really just want to help people look better and take steps that they might have a hard time taking with, or feel uncomfortable doing. So I really hope to help others out with similar projects, or kind of anything out there. So that's kind of the end of the book focus part of the presentation. I am going to kind of go over something else that I mentioned, which was photo editing. Since I'm a designer, one of the frustrations of photography is seeing what you see with your eye and actually getting it recorded to the camera. So I was going to kind of show a few tips on what you might be able to do to help fix a photo that might not have come out exactly how you hope. So I don't know, Kim, if I should toss it back over to you for a second, or if I should just jump right back in.
Well, we can open it up for any questions. I don't know if anybody can put in their chat if they have a question for Alex. We can relay that to him. I know that Matt Kalwasinski is monitoring our YouTube, Facebook live streaming. And he will let us know if there are any questions there. I did go to that Promise You Art store to pick up Alex's book, even though he was kind enough to suggest that we could meet somewhere so that I could get my own copy. And it was a very cute little place. I ended up picking up several other little gifty items because there's a lot of interesting stuff there. And I kind of wished I would have known about it before Christmas.
Yeah, they have,
because there were some things. And I saw you had some of your photos available too.
prints, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that
they
was
have,
a cute little place.
there's
All right,
there's a
so
there's a lot of good like nature-based gifts and stuff there too. There's a lot of photographers that have stuff in there. There's some really just good abstract paintings and stuff that are kind of nature-based. So it's a good mix, and it changes seasonally too. So they kind of try to keep it fresh in there. So
will your next edition be available there also?
yes, it will. So it'll definitely be there. I think there's about 5 left. I think there's 2 copies there, and I have a few left here. So I'm gonna I'm probably actually gonna run those over the rest over there tomorrow. So if anyone that's joined in here today wants to go check it out or grab a copy, they can go see it there for themselves. So there'll be a few
It
more.
was really easy to get to. It was right off of Kennedy, south on Kennedy. And I actually went around the block, and the parking is actually right behind the building.
Yeah, it's right by, if you're familiar with Highland, it's right by, it's in an old like farmhouse where next to where Southside Bantam was, which was it's like a little mom and pop grocery store near Lincoln and Kennedy Avenue in Highland.
So we do have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you have a future dream of a birding location that you would like to explore?
I will at some point, I think. I don't know. I've talked to some seasoned birders, and from what really any birders, it's like you could go to the best birding place in the world and it just not be a good day, and you just don't see anything. Or you could, so I think that's really I don't know, I might have to think on that one. That's a tough one. Eventually, when I'm retired and stuff, I'm sure I'll be, if I'm already this deep in at this age, I'm sure, who knows where I'll be, when I retire. But yeah, I'm sure there isn't one place that I have in mind right now. No.
Do your children ever go out with you birding?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the pandemic, just going out and getting fresh air. My wife is a middle school teacher. She taught in the Hammond school system just until this last year. But So she was doing her e-learning upstairs at our house, and I had um, my son's downstairs, and I was trying to squeeze in work also at the same time. But that was just kind of our escape at the time, was just to go out. I would always have my camera with me, and we'd go on just different nature walks. So we go to Gibson Woods, Hoosier Prairie, Heritage Park, Beaker Woods, of course the Rookery. But now, like, if I say the word the Rookery, they're like cannot get away fast enough. They're just so sick of it because I go there all the time. But they like it. I'm sure when they get a little older, they're pretty young now, so I think once they start riding bikes and stuff, we'll probably spend a little bit more time there. But it's certainly hard to do much birding when they're with me. But I definitely make time to get out there with them. We love actually going there to go sledding. That the berm for the path there, just right by the parking lot, is an awesome sledding spot for younger kids. So that's
Ah.
another reason we go there. So
Do you use any kind of a blind when you're out photographing?
no, not typically. I spend a lot of time standing still and just kind of staring. A lot of people ask, or people will say, I went to the Rookery and I didn't see anything. And just birding is such a weird thing where you think, you're just going to go out and see all this stuff, and it takes just so much commitment and time and just patience, that I think flipping through the book, people might think it's just kind of going out there and like, oh, there's this bird and that bird, but it's just kind of the commitment, and like it's like anything else worth doing. It's the more you do it, the better you get at it, and it's like working out or bodybuilding or whatever you want to compare it to. It's just the more you just go through the motions, the better you'll get at it. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
We're ready for first steps of photo editing.
Yeah. So I don't mean to talk on a pedestal or anything, but this is just kind of an introduction to photo editing. Something I say at the beginning in the preface of the book is that I'm not a professional photographer or expert at birder or a scientist or anything. These are just a couple hobbies I have. So with on the design side, I've had some experience editing photos along the way and stuff. So I thought that would kind of be a nice thing to kind of share here with the group. So I know there's probably better photographers than me tuning in here too. And I know there's definitely better birders here too than me, but I thought I would share this since it's kind of just my niche. So get the full screen mode here. So just kind of first want to kind of talk about situational photography. So, especially with birdings and things like this, or any kind of wildlife or sports, or the realities of birding are that you have to just be in the right place at the right time. It's all, you could walk through somewhere and see absolutely nothing and walk the same path back and, spend twice as much time because you're seeing something here, everywhere. So that kind of makes birding photography a little bit of a challenge. Like I mentioned earlier, the camera's kind of always been an extension of me since I started birding, and I have no hard feelings against binoculars. They just aren't my thing. Anytime I put them in my face, it just feels unnatural. So I don't mind putting the big old camera in front of my face for some reason. That feels natural, I guess. So anyway, like I said, number one thing is just being in the right place at the right time. And the only way to be there at the right time is, like I mentioned on the last, just during those questions, is that the persistence really presents a lot of opportunities. So, if I go out 10 times in a row, I might share pictures or get an awesome shot of an eagle or something, which I frequently share on some of the local Facebook pages. And, what I don't share is that I went 9 times and I didn't see anything, you know what I mean? So I think some people are like, oh, you're lucky. And, as much as I want to be like, yeah, I am, but it's the work and the time you put into it. That's kind of a big part of birding, and the people you see out there all the time are the ones putting the time in. So I also have this thing that I joked with my former employer about called chronic optimism, and it's like when you make a to-do list of like 3 hours worth of stuff to do in like a 1 hour time period, and you think you're just going to go do all, that you're just going to take care of it all. So I'm always kind of giving myself the benefit of the doubt, or if I have like 3 bad days in a row, I'm like, okay, now there's like this 4th day I have like a 400% chance of seeing something good, because those other days, and whatever, however I validate it in my head. So just going through the motions, I think, is the kind of the number one thing that's kind of led me to become the photographer and birder that I am, right now. So so next, we'll talk about what is a good photo. So photography is a form of art. So subjectively, a good photo is just what you think it is. It could be something abstractly you can't even tell what it is, and to you it just speaks to you. So that's a good photo. For me, my perspective, I've kind of have like more of a commercial look at it, and just more of a what a photo should be from a subjective or from a aesthetic standpoint. So kind of what I look for when I look at a photo is you want pure black and pure white, which is basically white balance. And then the colors in between kind of just fall where they will depending on the lighting. But that's kind of something that's fairly easy to control, even if you're an amateur photographer and you have a computer. So I'm going to kind of go into that and show you kind of the Photoshop way and the kind of, okay, I just have the bare minimum. How can I do this on my computer way? Another thing is color balance, which doesn't really apply to nature photography a ton. You'll get a nice photo if you have better lighting, not a cloudy day. Lighting has a lot to do with that. But I typically don't mess with color balance on my photos aside from just white balance and making sure that I have that pure white and pure black. So like saturation is the slider in Illustrator, or I'm sorry, in Photoshop that is used to adjust color balance. And it's really easy to just take that a little bit too far, and just you could kind of spot a picture from a mile away that somebody had just kind of over edited their photo. So I tend to just, there's very few situations where I use that in, which I'll get into shortly here. Another big thing about a good photo is the rule of thirds, which is used to help create a composition with your photo. I will be completely honest. I crop probably 95% of my pictures. Taking pictures of birds happens so quickly most of the time. I go for like the center focal point on my camera, and I just shoot away, and then I kind of worry about making it look a little bit nicer afterwards, because that's just like that's my background. So that's just kind of has been my flow. So I'll get into the rule of thirds, which is kind of a rule to go by for creating a composition, and that this applies to not only photography but also like ads, TV and film. After I kind of show you what that is, if it's something you're not familiar with, when you're watching TV, you'll see it like in like 90% of shots, and you'll be like, oh, I never even noticed that. So it's kind of a cool thing to look at, as you're getting into the idea of any kind of compositions. And then the number one thing is just clarity or sharpness. So, it's the gleam in the eye of the bird, if you will, or just, seeing the detail that you hope to bring of an image out. So those are kind of, in my opinion, what kind of make or break a good photo. There's tools out there that are available to push things along. Photoshop, I feel like, is kind of industry standard, so it's not really cheating, but there's definitely AI versions of programs, which I've bought into a few of them, and to crop a photo a little more and to make it a little more clear. It's a nice little trick, but again, like the color balance, it's really easy to see that from a mile away. So there's probably maybe 3 to 5% of the pictures in the book I maybe increase the sharpness on. So I try to keep it pretty natural and honest. So I'll move on here. So the 3 top adjustments that I use when working on my photos. Here's a northern shrike here that was spotted last winter along the south edge of the Rookery. He hung out for a few weeks. Anyway, the top 3 adjustments that I make when I'm editing photos are white balance, or what is known as levels in Photoshop. 2 is cropping and composition. So this is kind of just a way to look at a photo, or kind of look at what you have and decide how tight to make it, or if you want to include some of the background to kind of show some of the natural habitat that the bird might hang out in. That's something I like to consider. And then color balance, which I mentioned earlier, or it's called saturation in Photoshop. So this is, again, something that's good for if it's a really gray day and it's a bright bird and you want the color to pop, the cardinal's red to be a little brighter, but it's kind of a slippery slope. So I tend to kind of shy away from that most of the time. So here's an example of a red-shouldered hawk that I shot on a cloudy day at the Rookery. So the photo on the left, you can see, like I mentioned, I kind of use that center focal point most of the time. It kind of gives you the best the most wiggle room for cropping the image or kind of dialing it in after, once you're getting into editing and processing things. So I just basically wanted to show this is kind of an example of a underexposed photo. This tends to happen a lot on a cloudy day. The camera basically is going to read what you're pointing it at and kind of decide, okay, it needs to be this dark or this light, and these are the colors I'm seeing, so I'm going to produce an image this way. And on a cloudy day like this, there's all these droplets of water in the sky, and the sun is just reflecting off of all of them. So although it looks dark, there's just light shining everywhere, and the camera doesn't know what to do. So I just hope for a sharp picture. There's adjustments you can make on the fly. So I'll do that too. But sometimes your sharp picture just looks like this one on the left. So, the one on the right here, I cropped with the composition in mind. I adjusted the levels, the white balance on this to kind of reveal a little bit more of the detail in this bird's face and feathers. And I didn't push it so far with a white balance where it doesn't look natural. It still looks like a cloudy day. So that's kind of always my intention is, do I push things too far? And that's kind of one of the scary parts of Photoshop that makes it a little bit, there's so many different ways to do the same thing too, that, how I'm showing you this might not be the only way or the best way to do it, but it's an easy, approachable way that has some steps that, you could easily follow to have similar results. So this looks kind of like a lot of information, but when you're in Photoshop, to adjust levels, you basically go to image, the little image drop down here, and select adjustments and levels. And this little box will pop up, and these little mountains here basically represent the colors of the photo. So on one end of the mountain here, this is kind of looks crazy to someone who might not have looked at something like this before, but I'm gonna still kind of walk through it, just to kind of let people see kind of what I go through. So this mountain represents all the colors in the image. In the ideal color balance photos, this white, oops, sorry about that. This arrow here represents the white part of the photo, and this arrow here represents the black part of the photo. So you can see the output levels below that kind of matches up there. And then this slider in the middle kind of adjusts everything in between. So a good practice for dialing in white balance here is to drag these outside arrows or little carrots here right to the edge of this I think it's called an infogram or histogram or something like that, that basically shows the information that's in your image. So so here, this is before any adjustments have been made. So down here on this adjusted one, you can see I only adjusted the black in a little bit because the photo is really dark already. So there was really no need to adjust that. But over on the right, there's this huge gap here, which is basically the lack of white in the photo. So I took the slider and dragged it over here. It also shows the numerical values at the bottom that represent the movements here. So you can see at the beginning, there's 0 on the one side, 1 and 255 here. Those change as you slide it. There's a science to it, but I'm a visual guy. So I've done this, I just go by my eye. And this could kind of be crazy in here. Something that's nice to play with while you're at this step is this little preview toggle switch. So it's usually on when you're making the adjustments and you could see them in real time. But when you're here, you could unclick preview. Oops, there's me trying to click it. You can unclick preview and it'll actually show you the original photo before you edit it. So you can kind of see if you're doing good or bad to the photo. So it'll take a few tries to get used to doing this. But it is pretty satisfying if you could see on your, on the back of your camera or your computer as you're reviewing your pictures that, you see that the image has some detail that you can kind of reveal there. So that's really like the number one tool that I use after I get back home from the rookery and plug my memory card in, and pick my favorite pictures. That's kind of what I'm adjusting. And on a good day with modern technology, a lot of the stuff you don't even need to adjust it, but so it's kind of a situational thing. The next thing I'm going to talk about is cropping and rule of thirds, which was kind of talking about the composition of photos and kind of which way to go here. So over here on the left is the original photo. So there's a few different ways that it could be. It's not the original. I'm sorry. This is the color corrected photo. So you could see it's a little bit lighter. You could see the bird now. So my choice, I decided to crop this vertically just based on what's around him. And I landed here. And it might be a habit just from a capturing and identifying standpoint to just crop a bird or whatever the subject is that you're photographing right in the center of the image. Um, so I think using the rule of thirds, which I'll go into more of what that is in a moment here, it shows it kind of just creates a little bit more interest in it. There's kind of some key visual points that you can land some, the main subject on that kind of just creates a little bit more interest and is just a little bit more visually appealing. So here's a very graphic way of explaining the rule of thirds. So in my head, basically it's ideal to follow if you split the directions in thirds both vertically and horizontally. The key points where I would suggest focusing your subject are where these crosshairs are in the middle here, right where the thirds basically land. So like I mentioned, like in video and TV, you'll see that they'll, if it's a horizontal orientation on a show, you'll see like two people talking, like the back of one's head and the front of one's face, and they'll be like exactly on these third marks, or like a horizon in a photo with the sun or something. You'll see that they land on these spots. So it's just a nice way that I don't know the science behind it. I'm sure that there's ways that your eyes are drawn to these areas, but that's just kind of a way that I go about cropping a photo to share. And you can't always apply this either, like a bird in flight. You just kind of have to pick a spot in the in the image. Right in the middle might be okay, but sometimes you just have to pick a spot that you want to focus on and just make that be, just decide where that piece is going to land. So here's another example of a rule of thirds. This is a photo of a cardinal I took this morning. I think this one is just kind of screaming at you where these should land. If you look, we almost have a stick here, and then he's right on the third. So in my head, right away, I want to crop it like this. It kind of shows him in his environment. You see the tree a little bit. He's not right in the center of the image. And then if I decided to do a vertical orientation, I would probably put him on that bottom third, kind of using these twigs here to kind of frame him out into that location. So like I mentioned, those are just kind of a few simple things that that'll kind of improve photos. So something else I wanted to mention was, what if I don't have Photoshop? So on a lot of computers, there's just very simple photo editing software. Preview is what comes standard on an Apple computer. I'm sure Windows might have a similar application. So basically, if you just double click your image, this is what it's going to open in on an Apple computer. So from here, we're kind of going to take the same steps that you would in Photoshop. So again, it's going to be under a different dropdown, but tools, it's going to be called something similarly, but you go down and hit adjust color. So here on the left side is the original photo. Oops. So you could see something very similar to what we saw in Photoshop, which is this histogram, or I'm butchering whatever that's called, but anyway, we have these same sliders. The one on the right again represents white. We have the left one's black, and then the one in between. So again, same thing. I'm going to take the slider over from the right, move it in to get that white popping a little more on the photo, and then the same thing on the left. I'm only going to adjust it a little bit, and then it's kind of up to you to take this middle one and go back and forth and decide if it's getting better or worse one way or another, which is kind of like, it's kind of up to you, and the more you do it, the more natural it'll become. So I'm kind of babbling on here, I feel like, but I did want to show you guys a kind of a real-time example of one of these images. So seems like I have Photoshop open here. On these gray, cloudy days that I visit the Rookery, I tend to see the Merlin out there, and he's rather close, just looking for a meal. But again, these gray days kind of create a challenge to get the exposure right against this gray flat sky. So again, I'm just going to start with levels. So I'm going to go to adjustment, levels, and here we could see kind of what we're dealing with. So it's kind of flat in the middle. There's a big gap here that's going to help us solve our lack of white within our subject here. And then you could see on the black side, there's a little bit of adjustments there. So I'm going to start right away with the white side, and kind of lightens things up a little bit. I'm not going to adjust the black too much, but I'll just take it in there a little bit. And then at this point, this is where the middle part kind of really does a whole lot. So you can kind of see right away, we're losing a little bit of the black there, but it's really exposing quite a bit more of the detail that was completely gone without pulling this up. So I'm gonna take this down a little bit. This one doesn't have as much detail as the red-tailed hawk, or I'm sorry, the red-shouldered hawk did, but you can kind of see, you could play with this a little bit and kind of drag it in and out to see where you like it. You know, a bright sunny day, you'd see the separation in the feathers and all that stuff, but that really isn't the case. So again, I'm just going to click this little preview box here just to kind of see where we started and what that has become. So so that isn't something I would want to post, but if I was excited and saw Merlin my first time, that is something I would be happy to share on, you know, in a Facebook group or on my personal page. So you know, I thought it'd be nice to see just kind of a real-time example of that. So cancel here. Gonna just go through the same motions here on this one. I haven't done this on either of these yet, but we'll see if there's any kind of details worth revealing. And the Merlin taking a peek at me. So again, could definitely be better quality. It's a little noisy because it's so dark, but could certainly see them a little bit better there. So so I think that's pretty much it for the for this portion. Second here. So something I don't really like talking about a lot, but I thought was important to share here was what gear I use. So I certainly have not had the same gear this whole time. I've kind of slowly adjusted, and I've kind of had my eyes on something way out of my budget for a long time. So I've kind of been making small moves along the way to get there. So so I bought my first camera in 2011. It was a Canon EFS T2i. So it was just kind of like one of the better kind of consumer cameras that they had at the time. And then, so I had that for quite some time, you know, like I mentioned, I had started a family and things like that. And then kind of getting into birding, I improved my lens a little bit, just bought a little bit nicer lens. And I got a little bit nicer lens. And then I decided it was time for an update. So these little black stars here are kind of when things become out of my budget. And I decided to buy it pretty much secondhand exclusively here. So it's a little bit risky to buy something secondhand, but you can save like half of cost. So that's kind of the route I've gone on things. So I shot for quite a bit of the time I was birding and shooting pictures with the T7i, which was kind of just like what came after the T2i with some improvements and things like that with the technology. And then I put a few important little spots here. So you can see the grant was awarded at the beginning of 2022. You can see very shortly after that, I decided to literally bail on all of my camera gear that I had to purchase kind of the camera that I've had my eyes on for a really long time. So I sold 2 camera bodies and 3 lenses all within like a week, and then made a plan to go pick up this new camera used. So I used this Tamron 150 to 600 for pretty much the majority of the time with the book. And then after kind of getting over the hurdle of the book and, you know, getting a little bit more serious about photography, I decided just within the last couple of weeks to sell my Tamron lens and jump up to kind of my big goal of the Canon 100 to 400 IS2. So I've made promises to my wife to not upgrade for over a year or 2. I don't remember what I said, but I gotta be pretty serious about that. But you know, I thought it would be important to share that I have made upgrades over the years, and I'm lucky to have what I have, and you know, I spent a lot of time with it, so that's kind of how I validated making those purchases. So so I just have a couple more slides here and I'll be done. So I just want to thank everyone again for joining. I feel like I might be a little less, how do I say this? I feel like people that present for you guys most of the time might have a little bit more accolades in the birding community. So I was really humbled to be asked to join this and share my story, and just really appreciated the opportunity. And then if anyone has questions for me, here's my personal email address if you want to jot it down. And if you're on Facebook or if you're not on Facebook, either way, you could type in facebook.com/Highland Rookery book. And I'm still sharing photo updates there of stuff that's not necessarily, didn't make it in the book, but I might eventually transform that page into just my photography page once I get kind of into a few other projects, kind of in the same vein. But yeah, if anyone else has even questions about design stuff, or if they have a dream of a project they want to work on, I'm all ears to listen and help kind of talk through some of that stuff if anyone is interested. So.
Well, we're looking to see if we have any questions right now. But I do want to say that was very inspiring, the photo editing, because I seem to have a lot of photos that look just like that, with a nice bright background and a dark blob of a bird.
Yeah.
So I don't have Photoshop,
frustrating.
but I'm gonna check it out on my computer, but you have me intrigued and inspired.
If I had a Windows computer here at the house, I would have tinkered around with that a little bit too, but I'm sure it's photography. Everyone's got a camera in their pocket these days, so editing is just part of life these days for me anyway.
Yeah, great. Oh my goodness. So interesting. Um, Many people have commented that they've really enjoyed your presentation and really enjoyed the supplement from the photo editing, as I did also. I know on the Facebook chat, Matt was able to put the website for the retail store, but it's called Promise You Art. And of course, if they go on Facebook and check out your book page there, or email you, they can also find out how to get that book. Because let me tell you, it's pretty nice.
Yeah,
and I felt so honored that you actually included Dunes-Calumet Audubon was in there too. Somebody asked again about the name of the store again for the book. It's called Promise You Art.
Yeah, Promise You Art House. Art
House. Okay. It was very easy. Once you told me what it was, I stuck it in the little map thing. My GPS took me right there. But I tend to be a person who goes around the block. Gotcha. So I look and say, oh, yep, there it is. Okay, let me go around the block and find a way to go parking. And they were really nice there. And like I said, lots of interesting things. But I am just so thrilled to have my book. It's just so fun to look at the pictures, especially a day like today when it's rainy and everything, and I can look through there and see what's coming up next. And I found even the picture of I had it tagged for a little while, the our logo with the belted kingfisher is in there also, which is very exciting.
Yeah, so right now there's just about a handful of books left. I have another, like I mentioned earlier, I got an order of 100 more copies on the way. And so right now, Promise You is the only place to get them to walk in person. But I've talked to the visitor center on Kennedy there, the Indiana Visitor Center, and I believe that I'll have some there after this order. And then American Natural Resources is a place in downtown Griffith that's more of like a hunting kind of place. And the owner there is really into nature and birding. So I spoke to him, and I believe it'll be there. And then I'm kind of in the works of talking with the Center for Performing Arts in Munster to get it in their gift shop. So I'm kind of hoping to get it a little bit more spread out. And I've been asked by the Sandridge Audubon Society to present to their group in May. So that'll be exciting, right in the middle of migration. So that'll be a fun time. So things are I'm kind of branching out, and I'm also going to be reaching out to a little bit more press and things, and hopefully do a little bit more stuff like that just to kind of get the word out. Honestly, my main goal this whole time through this process has just been to just raise awareness for the Rookery, because even a lot of residents here that I know are just kind of like, what's that? And I'm just like it almost feels like you're in a different country when you're there sometimes, because it's just so depending on the sunrise and just the way the light's coming through, it just doesn't even look like, it just looks like a different place. So it's a special place for sure.
So much exciting things happening at the Rookery, especially as spring is coming along. Just a couple reminders here, if you can still hear me. We've got some reminders about the great backyard bird count, bird walk this Saturday with Michael Top, festival registration giveaway. Our next program is Thursday, March 16th. And then again, also the merchandise that we have available. I think I may be off. I don't know if we're still on Zoom, if you can hear me still.
Yep.
I have crazy things going on my screen. So, but thank you everyone. And thank you so much, Alex, for the presentation. And thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Happy birding.
Have a good night.